Okay, hello, my name is Nadia Hamid. I am the Director of Artist Development at the International Folk Art Market in Santa Fe, New Mexico, USA. And today I would like to share some information about our International Folk Art Market application. The International Folk Art Market is a market that happens every year in July, and it happens for 3.5 days. We have an application that you need to submit to the organization. From now on, I will be referring to it as IFAM. So at IFAM, you must submit an application in order to be eligible for the review that happens after you submit. If you do not submit an application, you are not eligible at all for any potential selection. So you have to make sure that as you complete the form, that you complete all of the answers to each question in each tab, and that at the end of the application, you put your electronic signature and you press submit, and then you receive an immediate confirmation. If you don't receive an immediate confirmation, then you have not submitted. So I will explain that a little bit later. So the first thing you have to do is you need to go to our website, www.folkartmarket.org, and there you will find a button for an artist application. And the first thing you do is you sign into your account. You sign in with an email address, and then you create a password. And that's the reason why is so that you can start your application, but you can also stop it at any time and save your information, and then you can log back in later in order to complete it and submit. So the first tab that you do after you've started your account is you share your contact information. This is the way that we will reach you to notify you if you are selected or not. And if you are selected to be an IFAM artist, then we communicate with you using that primary email address. The other tab that follows is more contact information for the additional participants. So these are the additional members of your delegation that you will bring to IFAM. And if you are selected, these additional participants will also receive a letter of invitation. So in this second tab, we need all of their contact information, the name, your address, your email, your WhatsApp number, and all of this information will go towards our communication with you if you're selected. Then the next tab is about participation history. So if maybe one of your family members has participated at IFAM before, we would like to know. If you have participated at IFAM before, you will list all of the years of participation. It's very important to share if your family or maybe a friend has participated, because we also want to know how did you learn about IFAM. If you have participated previously with another name, maybe your business name changed, or maybe the workshop name changed, you have to fill out all that information, because if you have a lot of history with IFAM, that makes for a stronger application as well. So you should include all that information. If any of your other family members, as I said, or your friends have participated at IFAM before, you're also going to make sure to share all that information with us. Then the next tab is one of the most important sections. So a tab is a section of the application, and we have a couple of sections that you need to complete. So this section is called People, Story, and Impact. So we first of all would like to know, what is your artist story? So if you are an individual artist or an organization, we want to know the history of how you became an artist or how your organization started making work. If you're a workshop, Maybe you want to share more about how your family generated this art and the history of how this came to be. And then, of course, if you're an individual artist, how you started making the work. Then we want to know the most important aspects of your work. That means the most important aspects of your art and the most important aspects of your culture and the most important aspects of the impact that you make when you're making your art to your community, to your family, or to your country. Then we also want to know how you share more about the traditional aspects of your work, so the heritage of your art. We also would like to know if there are any aspects of innovation. So perhaps you're making work that is rooted in a tradition, but now you're making something that is more contemporary, but still has the link back to the tradition. So at IFAM, it's very important that you are always sharing art with us that is rooted in a tradition. If it's not rooted in your cultural tradition, it's not acceptable to IFAM. In these sections, you're also going to share what categories you're making, what kind of categories of art that you're making. At IFAM, in one application, you can apply with 3 categories maximum. You can apply with 1 category or 2 or 3, and that's it. So if you make clothing and you also have a workshop that makes at the same time ceramics, that's okay to put in 1 application. Just share more about the reasons why this workshop has these 2 categories. That's one example. We also want to know how your art is important for your family, your community, the region you're from, or your country. So if you're making art, for example, that is distinct to your region, we want to know the important aspects about this. And we want to know why this folk art tradition is important, again, for your community. Because it's important, if you're selected, that we share your story in a very genuine and authentic way, and how it is linked back to your community. We also want to know if any individuals from outside of your community, so that could be outside of the region that you live in, or maybe outside of your ethnic community in the same region, how they work with you, how they collaborate with you. And we'll get more into questions like that if you're a designer. If you employ other individuals to produce your art, to make the final product, we want to know if they are paid a living or sustainable wage. And please explain this in detail. So for example, if your living wage is a certain amount, you can tell us how that is cross-referenced to the living wage of all of the people in general of your community. We want to make sure that the people you employ or the family that works with you is receiving a sustainable wage. So give us some contextual information with that. And then lastly, in this section, we want to know all of the positive social impacts or activities that you or your business or workshop are providing to these employees or the artisans that are working with you. So for example, are you providing skill training? Are you providing educational support programs? Are you providing water projects? Are you providing opportunities for advancement? And then with all of these questions, you're going to want to share that information in more detail. So if your family is able to now send your children to university, and previously nobody in your family was going to university, we want to know that information, and we want to know how many children are now going to university. We also want to know what are the positive, sustainable, and environmental activities in which you, as an artist or your organization or workshop, provides. For example, do you provide low to zero waste programs? Do you offer fair trade products? Can you share a fair trade product certification? Are you using recycled materials? Are you using natural materials? And then again, please share this information in more detail. We also want to know the impact of your business and organization in other markets. So are you participating in other markets? Are you participating in other sales opportunities? So for example, if you're participating at the Kokon Festival previously, you'll want to share that with us. Now, these are some questions around where you make the art. So are you making the art at home? Are you making it at a workshop or a studio? If you are making it at a production facility like a factory, we want to know more information around the location. Again, also to help us understand the working conditions of the artisans. If you have a store or a shop, you should let us know that you do and share where the location of the shop is. If you're selling wholesale, so for example, you are making orders that you are then shipping somewhere else, or you are making orders to then sell to another business in your country or abroad, we want to know if you're doing that. We also care a lot about your achievements. So if you have any awards that you have achieved, or certifications, again, there will be a couple of places to upload a link. Share as many certifications that you have. This makes, again, for a much stronger application. It shows us that you have already been awarded for the art or the product that you've made, and that you have received a level of prestige. We want to make sure that we also share that in your story if you're selected. Lastly, are there any especially talented individuals, family members, friends that you're aware of that are continuing to carry on the same tradition that you're working in? It's important for us to know that you are inspiring other individuals to sustain your craft. Especially if they have a relationship to you. So if your children are making this work or your children are learning this work from you, we want to know that information. And speaking of educational resources, at the International Folk Art Market at IFAM, one thing that we provide to you if you're selected is we provide you educational resources that are both online and in person. And in order for us to continue to stay relevant, to provide these educational resources to you, we want to make sure we understand what resources you need. So you'll check off the different types of resources. Maybe it's marketing, branding, maybe it's a business strategy, product design, maybe you need help with pricing or inventory management. You can check off as many options as you want and share also these educational resources that you desire in more detail. So one thing as you go from section to section that you need to remember is that there is a button at the bottom that says Save and Next. Next means that you're going to proceed to the next section. So if you are completing one section, make sure to always hit Save and Next, and then proceed to the next section. You can fill out one section halfway and then press Save and Next. Or if you need to leave the application, you will press Save and Close. This is applicable to all the sections in our application. And we want to make sure that after you write down all your information, that nothing is lost. So continue to press either Save and Next if you want to proceed, or Save and Close if you would like to leave the application exit the program and then come back and log in later to continue your next section. So the next section after people, story, and impact is another big one. It's called art, techniques, and materials. So I will explain here again that to apply to IFAM, you can apply with up to 3 categories of art. Some of the categories, for example, are textiles, that can be apparel, clothing, or rugs, carpets, or home, like tablecloths or bed coverings. Other categories are things like ceramics, glasswork, woodwork. Maybe it's art that is made with paper. You can choose up to 3 categories in one application. If you are making 3 categories of work in your workshop, put it all in one application. Don't do one category per application. Put it all together. So in this section, depending on the amount of categories, you're going to answer the same questions for up to 3 categories. So first question is going to choose your primary category. This is important because if you're selected and you make textile apparel items and also home items, but you mostly make apparel items, your primary category should be apparel. Here are some of the questions that are asked of each category. So describe in detail the techniques you use to create the artwork. So from beginning to end of your process, if you're weaving and then dyeing and then embroidering, you want to describe every step of the process and maybe put it in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, for example, like that. So it's organized. Only identify the pieces of the process that feel the most important to you. If it's a very minor piece of the process that's not very important to the final product, you don't have to elaborate in much detail. Then we want to know the details of the special motifs or designs in your art and what makes them culturally important. So at IFAM, the committees that are reviewing your application are looking for specific information that shares the rooted information about the techniques and designs. They must be rooted in a tradition. Like I said a little earlier, they have to be rooted in a cultural tradition that you have identified in your application. So if you're doing something that is distinctly from Samarkand or distinctly from Rishton, you're going to identify what that cultural tradition is and how your designs are linked back to that tradition. If you make art that is not linked to a cultural tradition, do not include it in your application. And we also want to know more about the materials that you are working with. And we want to know this information just to collect an overall bird's eye view, an overview of your art or product. So don't worry about how you answer this question. You should be as truthful as possible because the more information we have about you, in this case about the materials that you're working with, the better the application will be. So we want to know the percentage from 100% of what materials are actually made by you or your workshop and what materials are you buying. If you're making 50% of your materials, you're going to put 50%, and then we assume that 50% is also purchased. Do you make the materials yourself? If so, then you're going to offer the details of that to us. I will suggest that the more that you make yourself by hand, the stronger the application is. Of course, we also understand that materials are purchased. So if you are purchasing materials, don't worry. Just share in more details. Where are you purchasing these materials? Are you purchasing it from a store nearby? Do you go to a specific location to find the materials to buy it from? Answer all this information in detail. We also want to know what percentage of the materials are natural versus synthetic. The more natural, the stronger your application. At IFAM, we don't really want to accept product that is made with synthetic materials. Sometimes we understand that there are some exceptions and that you have to use some synthetic materials. So you will have an opportunity to share why you use those synthetic materials if you do. If you're using natural materials, share all the details of the natural materials that you use and where they're found and what they are. And again, these percentages need to total to 100 to make sense. We also want to know how many artists are directly involved in the process of making your artwork. So please let us know the total amount of women who work with you, men, and also if anyone is gender neutral. We also want to know if you identify as an indigenous person. So you're an indigenous person with an indigenous heritage to your culture. We want to know how many artists that you work with are also indigenous. And then you'll go on and answer the same questions for your second category and your third category if you have it. Some applications, there's only one category. That's completely fine. Now the next section is only a section you need to complete if you consider yourself, you identify yourself as a designer. For us, the definition is written above in this section, so you can refer back to that definition, but a designer is someone from inside or outside of your community. So they live with your community, or maybe they live outside of your community, but they work with artists or artisans to create the final product. If you're an artist who makes designs, you're an individual artist, that doesn't necessarily make you a designer. So think about this section very clearly. This is mostly if you are making designs for other artists to produce, and you yourself are not making the work. If you are not a designer, you're going to immediately answer, no, I'm not a designer, and you're going to proceed to the next section. If you are a designer, you're going to answer yes, and more questions will drop down. One of the questions that's very important to us is about the design process. So as a designer, do you initiate the designs? Or are you consulting with the artists that you work with or the artisans that you work with in that community to also make the designs? Or maybe they're making the designs themselves. We want to know who is producing the art that you're designing. So for example, are there specific individuals or specific community members who are doing the weaving and dyeing and the assembly? That's one example. For ceramics, are there specific individuals who are actually making the pottery and firing the pottery in a kiln, or glazing the pottery and then firing it in a kiln? Please be as detailed as possible. If you're a designer, this is the most important section for you. If you don't give us a lot of information, your application will be rejected. We also want to know the details of the traditional aspects again. So in your designs, are there traditional colors? Are there traditional motifs or patterns? Are there traditional ways things are assembled or laid out? And how are they incorporated? And how are they culturally significant? Do you or the artist producers source the materials you use? So again, we want to know the relationship that you have with the artisans that you work with and with the materials that you or they are using. So are they sourced, these materials, are they sourced inside of your country? Are they imported? Do they come from the community that the artisans are also working with, or do they come from outside of the community? Just share as much detail as possible. We want to know if you are collaborating with the artisans that you work with. Are they acknowledged in the process? Do you acknowledge them in your marketing materials? Do you acknowledge them on the items themselves? Do you acknowledge them in your story? Share as much detail as possible. And then we want to know how the participation creates or makes a difference. So how would your participation at IFAM as a designer make an impact for the artists who are actually executing your designs? Does it elevate their life? Does it give them some kind of community empowerment? Share as much detail as possible. Okay, now we get to two sections that are around photos. In general, at IFAM, photos are used in two different ways in this review process. So one is what the first section is participant photos. That means the photos of you. If you're a designer, we want a photo of you as the designer, but then we also want additional photos of the artisans that you're working with. These photos are actually used as part of all of the marketing material that we share with our visitors, with our patrons, if you're selected. So you're not going to submit passport photos. You're going to submit professional photos or as decent photos as possible of you, again, and the other artists that you may work with. If you're an individual artist, you will share 5 photos of yourself. If you work in a workshop, you're going to share 1 photo of the primary person in the workshop. Maybe it's the matriarch or the patriarch of the workshop. And then 4 photos to total 5, again, of the other artists that work in the workshop. Again, if you're a designer, you will share 1 photo of yourself and 4 photos of other artists. This is a very easy task, but just make sure that the photos are very clear, that they are high resolution. So no image less than 1 megabyte, that they are in focus. If you have a lot of artists that you work with, try to do a nice big group photo, as many artists as possible in the photo. If you are selected, again, we promote your work and your story for many, many months up until the International Folk Art Market starts, online, in our newsletter, in our marketing materials, eventually in our market magazine, which is produced every year as part of our market, the IFAM market. So you want these photos to be spectacular. And if you can take photos of you in the surroundings where you live or the surroundings where you work, this is very good. This will make for a stronger application. So 5 photos in total. If you have more photos to share, you're going to upload more photos, but 5 photos at minimum. Then lastly, another very, very important section is the product photos or art photos. So as I told you, you can apply with up to 3 categories of art. If you have 3 categories of art, you're going to upload 10 images per category. So that would be 30 images at minimum. If you're applying with just 1 category, it's 10 images minimum. 2 categories, 20 images minimum. So let's talk a little bit more about these images. We don't need you to upload every image of each product. That's too many photos. You can upload more than 10 images per category, and I would recommend that you do that if you're sharing a wide range of your inventory. The images themselves require a name of the work. So instead of saying just rug, say the name of the rug. Maybe there's a distinct name and it's a sumac rug. If you're sharing a piece of clothing, and it would be a shirt, maybe there's a name for the shirt. If you have many different color ranges of, let's say again, shirts or jackets, we don't need to see all of the color ranges, but we do want to see enough images to get an idea of what your collection is presenting. We want to see the range of color, material. So if you're working with both silk and cotton, a few images of silk, a few images of cotton. If you're working with woodwork with also painted materials, a couple images of maybe your woodwork with blue and red patterns, and a couple of images with yellow and green. But not every single image of every product, just a sample. For each image, you're also going to share what the size is or the dimension. That gives us, the committee, an idea of how big or small this image is or this product is in the image, because sometimes it's a little bit unclear. Very, very, very important. We require that you put a price for each of the product type. So, and that product type, or excuse me, that price for each product type has to be in US dollars. Start to think in the application about the cost of your materials, your labor, the shipping and export, the custom and tariffs that might be due when you ship to IFAM. Start to calculate what that price will be in US dollars in total for each product type. If you do not calculate all of these items before, that is going to be a detriment to you if you're accepted, because if you are accepted, the prices that you list for each product have to be consistent at IFAM. They cannot change. They cannot go up or down. And there's no bargaining at IFAM. That's one important aspect of our market. In the US, it is important for the prices to be fixed. So calculate all of the costs that you can think of for your materials, your labor, everybody who works with you, and of course your profit margin, your shipping costs. You might want to have to project your shipping costs by talking to a shipper, and make sure that these prices are of value to you and will ensure your success at the market. But also remember a few aspects about pricing. Don't go too high because you're going to a market in the United States. First of all, your application is reviewed based on the product or art, and it's also reviewed about your pricing. If your pricing is very inflated, remember that your application might be in competition with another one. So you want to make sure that it's both marketable and profitable at the same time. So think about the economics. Think about what you sell to your customers here in your home country, and then calculate the additional costs that it might take to ship or to bring to an international market like ours in the United States. But also remember that too high of a pricing means that you're not necessarily going to make a profit. If there's a demand, maybe you make a profit. But if you're a new artist to IFAM and you're particularly unsure about the customers that come to our market, make sure it's a fair price. One thing I can share is that the price point of, for example, most clothing, the best price point should start at a lower price point to a little bit of a higher price point. So make sure that there's a range, and that it goes actually in general for most art. Make sure that you have a range of sizes or dimensions of your work, because not everybody has a big house. to put that art. Not everybody has a lot of money to buy a lot of clothes. Some people only want to buy something very small. So make sure that you have a range of pricing. Make sure you have at least 3 different price points, if not more. That will make for a stronger application. And again, your pricing is fixed. So once you put the pricing in your application, and if you are accepted to the IFAM market, you will continue to keep that pricing the same at the IFAM market. And at the IFAM market, if you're selected, you have to put prices on price tags. They have to be visible to our patrons. If you don't, there are some penalties. So you have to follow these policies and make sure that you understand them. Last but not least, for each photo, you're going to also put the year that it is made. We do not accept work that is made 5 years or older. So it has to be work or art that you have made recently to be eligible for consideration for selection to IFAM. We do not accept work that is beyond 5 years, also because we want to make sure that this work is being made by you and not by somebody else previously from you. For the photos, again, 10 images need to be uploaded at minimum per category. So keep that in mind. And keep in mind, again, your price range, because you're going to have to list for us also consistently what was your lowest price point and what is your highest price point. This is very important information to us, particularly to our last committee that reviews your application, because they are looking to make sure that if you're selected, that you will be successful at our market. We don't want to accept you and you come all the way to Santa Fe and then you're not successful. That costs a lot of money and there's a lot of risks involved with that. We want to make sure that you are going to be very successful at our market and that you'll want to come back again and do even better. For the photos, make sure that you are taking pictures that are in high resolution, no lower than 1 megabyte, so higher than 1 megabyte, and that you're taking them in focus. And if you are taking a photo of this cup, make sure to have a really plain background, so no people behind it, no other things behind it, and just one image of one product. Very important, because your application is being reviewed by all the questions that you've answered, and then also being reviewed by all of the images that are being uploaded. That is the only way for our committee to understand your work. So make sure that your photography is at the highest level and that you have nothing distracting in the background. And if you have a couple of different types of a product, again, maybe a different color range or size, and they are very distinct between each other, just take separate photos. Don't put them all together in one photo. It'll be very distracting and you will be rejected. So that's it about photography. After that, you are going to sign your application. You're going to warrant to the IFAM market that you are truthful in your application, that the information that you have shared with us is genuine and authentic. The committee that reviews your applications are experts. They're professionals with museum backgrounds, art backgrounds, retail backgrounds as well, wholesale market backgrounds as well. They know how to evaluate your application authentically, and they know to evaluate your information as authentic information. If you are sharing information that doesn't seem to fit the context of the cultural history that you've shared, the traditional aspects that you've shared, or if the art is not genuinely made by you, you will be rejected. So make sure that the information that you send to us, the photos that you're submitting, are genuine and authentic, and you are signing your name on this application to share with us that that is true. After that, you've completed every section. You're going to click the button down below that says submit. If you have completed all of your information for each, you've answered every question, you will submit and you will receive an automatic confirmation. If you click the submit button and you do not receive a confirmation, you will see red letters up above, and it will say error, or that you have to complete more information, and it will highlight in red each section that is missing information. So sometimes if you go through this application maybe a little bit quickly, or on your phone where it's a little harder to see if you've completed everything, if you've clicked submit, you see this red light on each section that is not complete. You have to go back to that section and complete that information. And if you need to do that, remember to hit or to click the button save and next to proceed to the next section to complete it thoroughly. Again, if you are submitting and you have submitted in full, you have answered all the questions in full, you're going to receive an immediate confirmation. If you do not, you know that you have to go back and submit the rest of the information that's required in order to submit your application to IFAM. So thank you very much for listening. I hope that this is helpful to you. If you have any questions, it might be good for you to review both the application first and then also our frequently asked questions page. It's linked in the application. It's also on our website, folkartmarket.org. Before you email us and ask us those same questions, they might be answered by the information that is already on our website or by watching this video that you're watching now. If you also have questions that are more detailed, more about the experience about IFAM and what to expect about the market, or what to expect about things like coming to the United States or shipping to the United States, you might also want to ask questions of the Anamurang Crafts Association so that they can forward any questions that they cannot answer to our team to help you. So I wish you best of luck. Our application is open right now, and it will close on the 4th of September of this year. There's no extensions, so please start your application today and submit by the 4th of September to be eligible for IFAM 2026. Thank you.
Thank you too.